Priority 4, question. Within the COVID economy, what are the conditions that are, will or may impact your organisation? In our last video, we looked at a new mindset for innovators, thinking and acting at the speed of change. We also covered the key points of strategy in action, or being the seer, as the skill set. We also looked at the strategic focus that we all must have, leveraging the COVID economy. That's what it's all about. We must be all about leveraging the COVID economy. In this video, we'll start to think immediate and emergent conditions at scale. It sounds like a lot, but it's easy to parse out. So at the end of the video, we're going to ask you the question, what are the conditions that are, will or may impact your organisation? And if you don't know, find out, or else you'll go into managed adaptive decline. So thinking immediate and emergent conditions at scale. Now, conditions are really simple. It's about the state of something. It's in the dictionary. Look it up. A condition can be like the weather, the surface of the road, or the conditions when playing sport. It's just simply a condition. It's the what is. It's not necessarily a judgment to be good or bad. It's the what is. If you think about it, if it's raining on Saturday and you can't do a picnic, that's not good for you. Right? That's a high risk for you going on a picnic. But it might be great for farmers. It might be an opportunity for farmers. So we really have to think about conditions are just the what is. And those conditions that are happening now, we call the immediate conditions, and those that appear to be coming from the future are emergent conditions. And emergent conditions, we look at the weak signals and the strong signals that appear to be coming from the future. And then it's a matter of looking at what scale you want to look at. It's a bit like the camera lens. If you're out here, you're looking at the global, or what we call the mega. Then bring in a bit more focus here. It doesn't mean this has gone away. You're just more focused into what the macro might be, or the national and the state. And then when you get down to the micro, it might be within your organisation. So we talk about immediate and emergent conditions at scale. And it's all in our book, Disrupted Strategy for Exponential Change, for a better explanation. That's available on audiobook, ebook, and also printed versions as well from any of your booksellers. So what are we watching in Resilient Futures? In our conditions watch area, we're constantly looking at immediate and emergent conditions at scale, and particularly the strong and the weak signals that are coming towards us, so that we can actually start to understand what those conditions are, so that we can actually start to see opportunity and risk within those conditions. So if I think about some global and local conditions that we're watching at the moment, this is just a few of the things that we watch. Firstly, we obviously watch COVID-19 and the pandemic, the health issues, the infections, the suppression, and the remediation. And what we mean by that is obviously infections and infection rates local to global. And what's happening with that? Is that going up or going down? And all of the associated variables in that. Suppression is look at how we're suppressing the virus, how we're actually taking action socially, economically to make sure that we get hold of that virus. And also looking at remediation, vaccines, therapeutics, better ways of testing, instant testing. If you'd listened to Rebecca Costa's discussion that I had with her on our podcast, you would have seen that she talks about remediation being the fastest way of getting towards opening up an economy or changing our way that we work within the economy. From a timing issue, we're looking at time to feel safe. What type of remediation do we need to feel safe? It might be simple as a 30-second check to see if someone has COVID-19. Now that's already underway. It might be a therapeutic, so almost COVID-19 becomes like the flu. Or at a stretch, it could be a vaccine, because there are a hell of a lot of problems with vaccines that we're still discovering as we produce the vaccine. We also look at the social economic impact of suppression. Obviously a critically important thing to do. The whole world has changed, not just from COVID-19, but the social economic impact of suppression. So some of the disruptors that we're seeing that came from the past that is moving into the COVID economy are these. Now, a word of warning. A lot of organisations think all I have to do is watch what's going on within their industry, inside their organisation. Now that's fine, but most of the big disruptions that are occurring are coming from outside that. The global, the national, the state, coming in to your industry and into your organisation. So having that bigger lens is critical. So when we talk about things like geopolitical friction, it is important. Now we only have to look at China to see the breakdown of some of the relationships that we have with China from an economic perspective. It's impacted barley, meat, and it's also impacting the wine industry now. So that geopolitical friction is critical. We're also seeing populist politics take over. And you only have to look to America and also to the United Kingdom and Brexit to understand how that has impacted organisations, both positively and negatively. And also sclerotic government. We only have to look at the way the pandemic has been handled. The government just can't keep up with these sorts of changes. In many cases, it's not anyone's fault. It's just that the machinery of government is not as fast to adapt to very fast changing conditions. From an economic perspective and a financial perspective, we have to understand that we're still in the post-GFC economic situation. It's a fractured situation. Our financial services are failing. We are going to experience a debt bomb. That is domestic and sovereign debt coming together at a time when we're increasing our debt. Now I'll go through this in a later video, but this is one thing we have to watch. And we also have to watch how we're going to resolve this. Is there going to be a debt reset, or are we going to increase our inequality that was there before COVID-19? Now every organisation would have been on some sort of digital disruption pathway, whether they were getting into digital or they were ignoring it altogether. And unfortunately what we've found is many organisations were ignoring it or putting it on the back burner. And that was mostly because senior leaders don't really understand or haven't understood fully the implications of being digital. So this has been going on for some time prior to COVID-19. What happened with COVID-19 is there was a digital fast flip, rapid adoption of digital services. And this has further fueled not only organisational change, but the future of work, particularly for service-based organisations, which employ 75% of Australians and much of the same in other countries. One of the things in terms of suppression that has happened in the COVID economy is the loss of the square metre economy. Now you've heard me talk about this before in other videos, but we really have to understand the implications of that. We really have to understand the rise of telework industry, the future of mixed use space. How are we going to look at all those buildings that can't be used for full function anymore? We've had what we call a density disaster, where density was seen to be good in CBDs, people packed in to trains going down and being actually in the same office, 20 people in a lift going up and down. That's gone, and it's gone for a very, very long time. Not only is it gone, most likely it will come back in some shape or form. We will have mixed use space. But what will that mixed use space be like when we look at the productivity that we're getting from the telework industry? Remote work is now the norm. Now that only dislocates the use of office space, but what this also does is opens up many businesses to the world. You can employ people in different parts of the world, local or global, it's up to you. And in bringing that together, the productivity gains that could be there if we just start to think smart as to how we do that. Now COVID-19 has meant job extinction, not job loss but per se. Job extinction. The loss of some jobs where those skills will be used again, but the extinction of some skills as organisations rapidly go to being digital. We're going to have to think how we deal with this displacement and replacement transition. We really have to think about that. Now this is happening at a time when I believe we've had an education breakdown. Education has not kept up to the speed of change that we experienced up to 2019. So just think about it. It took COVID-19 for our education institutions to go online. And much of their online education is not fit necessarily for a COVID economy. So it's not only about the delivery of education, it's about the pedagogy. It's about how we frame our courses. And we should be having micro courses and all sorts of ways of getting people to incrementally change their skill base. And we also must look at the content. What are we thinking about when we're talking about business processes from pre-2019? We really have to be teaching people new things fit for the 2021 we're going to have in the COVID economy. We also need to think about the rapid rate of redeployment. We have to be able to get that cracked to make sure that we can unbundle skills that people have had from the past and rebundle them for the future. And in doing so, we have to start immediately planning for the emergent workforces that we're going to need if we're going to be leveraging the COVID economy and generating sustainable value. So let's start to think about what is an emergent workforce. Now, we're revealing certain opportunities. We can't say that they're absolutely correct, but the signals, the strong and weak signals that are coming to us, tell us that we're in this sort of range of opportunity. First of all, we have pan-safe. We've already talked about that. Feeling safe in the future. What does it take? PPE, tests, but there's a whole bunch of stuff around transport. How do we reorient our transport so people feel happy with transport? How do we think about going to the office? That might only be for 2 days a week, but still an important part of actually getting the square metre economy back into action. We have to think about telework industry. How do we support all those workers who are now working from home? Now, some people can't work from home, so what about community hubs? How are we going to put space into communities where people can go to work without having to go to the office in a CBD? We have to look at the knowledge growth industry. Now, you'll hear that I'm not saying education sector here, because I think that should now form a part of a larger knowledge growth industry, which has to be created a lot faster than we can get these sorts of changes in skill-based training from our traditional education institutions. Also, we must be thinking about things like micro-manufacturing. And we'll do a video on micro-manufacturing in the future. But rapid prototyping, small batch manufacturing, 3D printing, all of those sort of things that can come together at a local level under the term micro-manufacturing. And in that case, we can look at local supply systems. You know, being able to locally manufacture the things that count in that particular area and be able to build some sort of resilience into supply chains into the future. And understanding that a lot of supply chains are going to move from physical to digital. That could be as much as I have a design over here for a part, and it could be a cup or whatever it might be, whatever material it is, and rather than send you that part or that object, I'm going to transfer a piece of data where you can then print that out locally. That is happening, and it will continue to happen into the future a lot faster than we think. So we have to think local supply chains. That also brings us to local economies. You know, imagine if we had these sort of facilities in the future. Imagine if pan-safe, telework, knowledge growth industry, micro-manufacturing were in local supply chains and local economies. Just that one bundle of opportunity out of the risks that we've talked about, it starts to reframe how we think about our future, particularly in the COVID economy. In our next video, we'll continue to look at conditions by covering 8 key points, essential points of conditions watching. And in the meantime, think about it.